Brajespikuteraga nist KKK Joyago tuk bogo bogo the Glass-Wielder Chronicle. In this video, I'll break down everything I've done so far to create this language, including details that might be interesting to those looking to develop their own conlang. Hopefully in the future, I can provide details to show how the language grows over time. Here are a few of the big rocks that define the way. Learning real languages, defining the fantasy culture, creating a set of rules, features, and words that express culture, and then of course building the language itself, which includes a dictionary and a book of grammar. But first, a little history of fantasy languages. It's no secret that the fantasy genre itself in part developed out of J.R.R. Tolkien's love for constructed languages. He created many languages, including 15 dialects of Elvish, 2 of which are considered functional, Sindarin and Quenya. He famously once said of his work, "The invention of languages is the foundation. The stories were made rather to provide a world for the languages than the reverse. To me, a name comes first and the story follows." Having taken deep dives into languages myself, I can understand his passion. Part of the reason to create a fantasy language is that it's an opportunity to explore different facets of humanity. Language is a window into culture. The words we use and the way we use them are a reflection of our values, history, and our relationships. Arguably, language can shape our thought and the way we see the world itself. At the very least, it undoubtedly influences our actions. Here are some examples. In Farsi, there's a word, ta'aruf, that has to do with general manners and civility, but I've heard used to specifically describe refusing an offer, which you are expected to do in Persian culture before you accept it. Have some cake. No thank you. Please, have some cake. No thanks. Have some cake. I've been told that the Dayak language of Borneo has no word for thank you, which is apparently the same in Dothraki from Game of Thrones. Both cultures are historically warriors and isolated from or uninterested in trade. Cultural implications of that are up for interpretation. In Javanese from the Indonesian island of Java is actually several languages in one. There is a whole different language to use depending upon whom you are addressing, including High Javanese reserved for royalty and those of high stature. And these are just 3 examples of how language impacts the way we treat one another. When constructing a language, you have to consider the people you are constructing the language for, just like you have to learn about an ethnic group to truly understand a language in real life. So here's my language background. I have been learning languages since middle school, which has been over 20 years. Wow. I started with Spanish, un idioma muy útil para alguien que vive en los Estados Unidos. I studied Arabic in college, including Levantine Arabic in Jordan. بحب العربي لغة حلوة كتير. وكمان بحب عمان في عمان, as well as classical Arabic. أنا أحب اللغة العربية أيضا. Right now, I'm studying Indonesian as I live in Borneo. Saya lagi belajar bahasa Indonesia, maafkan aku. And have explored other languages by learning phrases and grammar just for fun. Man Farsi harf mizan. Often, clearly as attempts to pick up girls. Outside of studying languages in school, I use a pretty organic method to learn. I pay attention to commonly used phrases and words and write them down so I can translate them later. That way I can train my ear to listen closely to what people are saying and retain some of the most commonly used phrases first. Sometimes though, confusing things happen. Spanish and Indonesian have some pretty unfortunate false cognates. Marikita means let's go in Indonesian and also means in Spanish. I, quite astoundingly, managed to shout marikita at a Spanish-speaking person visiting Indonesia. Yep, that really happened. And here's a nerdy one. Air means water in Indonesian, but air is spelled A-I-R, which means when you're watching Avatar in Indonesian, which we have been, this happens. Air. All of this learning plays into the development of the language, but eventually you have to create a people in order for the language to grow. The people in my book, The Glass-Wielder Chronicle, are in fact not people, but a species of humanoid jungle creatures called Joyago. They have the long arms of an ape, the legs of a rabbit, long ears, and braided hair all over their bodies. I wanted a species that reflected the slow pace of life in Borneo. I also wanted them to be the antithesis of the common religion in the Glass-Wielder world, hedonism, which is a worship of the unknown. The Joyago, on the other hand, like to learn about everything they can. They are scholarly, but don't do much of anything but read. This leads to fun scenes like where a group of Joyago board a ship, spouting all the correct sailing jargon, but effectively can't get the party to go anywhere. Regardless, they are an upbeat and positive species. They tend to not excel or become exceptional, but rather blend into the crowd, which makes the character of Kelyo, a small Joyago who wants to be a glass-wielding warrior, interesting. Having dug into some Indonesian languages, I developed some ideas for how I wanted to structure Joyago. In Indonesian, words are pluralized by doubling them. Orang, orang-orang. I decided to use repeated words as a means of conjugation. It's light and humorous and can also play into values. I verbs are said once. Rajis vis icho. You is twice. Eros vis icho. He, she, it, they is 3 times. Ichos vis icho. We is 4 times. Jakas vis icho. And the negative is 5 times. Ichos vis icho. It's the most difficult to say because the Joyago want to encourage positivity. The Joyago, being scholarly and well-read, love poetry. So I employed a diliteral root system. The 2 consonant sounds from which every word is derived adds a second, deeper meaning to whatever the word is. This is inspired by the triliteral root system in Arabic. For example, while Islam means submission, the root salama means peace. So there's a connotation of peace through submission rather than subjugation. Personally, I love the poetry of language and finding hidden meanings in words. Kalimantan, which is the Indonesian part of Borneo, means river of diamonds. Kali means river, but it also means time. So if you're doing something for the second time, you're doing something for the second river. For me, it's a really nice visual metaphor. So I wanted words in my language to have second, deeper meanings. In Joyago, chope means follow or come on. But the root ch and pa together means something that is snake-like or slithers. So sometimes using the word chope has a negative connotation of someone who follows blindly. Capitalization is a tool to show importance. In both Indonesian and German, you is capitalized. And that's because you are important. In Joyago, we is capitalized to emphasize the importance of the group. Additionally, as I built vocabulary, I had to consider interaction with the environment. As the Joyago live in the jungle, there are many words for humidity. Tiyoi, garach, pujoch. There are also many words for green. Hijay, make, walach. And also for different types of rain. Bisi, shamach, tursi. Some decisions have little cultural implications, but just needed to be made so the language worked better and felt realistic. For example, question words start with Z in Joyago, similar to how most question words in English start with W. They usually drop pronouns, but when they do use them, they add an S to the end of the pronoun, which makes Joyagos use S's on the ends of pronouns when speaking human speak. I could go on and on, but I will save some ideas for future videos. I am by no means a master of constructed languages and in fact have a long way to go in developing Joyago. I'm learning online by watching videos from the conlang guru, David Peterson. He was the one who took phrases from the books A Song of Ice and Fire and used them to create Dothraki and High Valyrian. If you were going to do this, I recommend listening to him. He has great resources out there. In some ways, high fantasy is just an exploration of culture. When we world build, we're making decisions about the types of people we want to explore. And they're always people, even if they look like this. Fleshing out languages will add a level of texture, richness, and professionalism to your worlds. At this point, I'm still scratching the surface and might be for a while. Even still, I hope being open about that process was interesting and inspiring to you. Joyago will be in my series, The Glass-Wielder Chronicle, that I plan to complete this year. If you enjoyed that video, you probably want to watch my tree magic video where I get into how I developed a tree magic system, or my Panjat Pinang video where I compete in an Indonesian national sport. Check out my Suncatchers channel for creative youth projects. Support my books and educational work on Patreon. Subscribe for more videos that I hope will inspire and uplift you. Godspeed.